Fake news.
Fake news.
Fake
media.
About fake news.
Fake
news.
news.
Is CNN fake news?
Fake news.
Wow. CNN had to retract a big story on Russia, with 3 employees forced to resign. What about all the other phony stories they do? Fake news.
Currently, the topic of fake news seems to dominate cable news cycles, newspapers, talk radio, and America's political discourse in general. However, fake news is nothing new. Throughout history, false and deliberately damaging or promoting media, or fake news, has been used as a tool for political gain. Documentation of propaganda traces all the way back to the 13th century with the donation of Constantine. Amidst attempts to claim more land through donations, the papacy used Constantine's fictional bestowal of property to justify further growth and independence throughout history. Countless religious and political upheavals can be linked to the apparent donation. It was not until the 15th century that the document was concluded to be forged by Lorenzo Vallo, leaving this art of fiction to be taught as one of the earliest, most influential pieces of propaganda in history. By the First World War, false claims were still used to further agendas of heads of government across the world. In 1917, Corpse Factory was published in the British press, stating that German armies were using factories dedicated to rendering down soldiers for fat. The rumor spread that these factories were accommodating for a short supply of fat caused by the British naval blockade. It wasn't until 8 years later that John Charteris, head of the British propaganda department, admitted to manufacturing this story and that he had sent it to China in hopes of gaining allies. He even created a counterfeit diary that was planned to be discovered with a war correspondent. However, this plan was never carried out. In the election of 2016, the country was deeply divided between progressive or conservative future. Social media, newspapers, and radio broadcasts were heated with arguments, a fault breaking between two parties of our nation. Misleading stories became an integral part of society. In July of this election year, WTOE 5 News accused Pope Francis of endorsing Donald Trump and quoted a statement from him. "I have been hesitant to offer any kind of support for either candidate in the US presidential election, but I now feel that not to voice my concern would be a dereliction of my duty as the Holy See." Later, though, this report was deemed false as it was not from a credible source. WTOE 5 News was considered to be a fake news site that maintains the facade of a local news outlet. For centuries in Myanmar, or Burma, there have been tensions between Muslim and Buddhist communities. The Buddhist majority has persecuted and marginalized the Rohingya, a predominantly Muslim ethnic group. In the last few years, the Myanmar military started systematically targeting the Rohingya, killing tens of thousands and forcing more than 600,000 to flee to neighboring Bangladesh. With the increasing prevalence of social media platforms, especially Facebook, anti-Rohingya sentiment has flourished. Matthew Smith, co-founder of the Fortify Rights, a human rights organization working in Southeast Asia, says that Burma is experiencing an ugly renaissance of genocidal propaganda, and it spreads like wildfire on Facebook. Many people, including military and government officials, have used Facebook to spread fake news claiming that there is no ethnic cleansing. Myanmar's president went so far as to say, quote, "I don't think there's ethnic cleansing going on." All it took was 47 minutes for a school shooting in Parkland, Florida, a true tragedy, to become subject to propaganda and insult. The shooting occurred on February 14th, leaving many with broken hearts on what should have been their Valentine's Day. According to the Washington Post, just 47 minutes after the news got out, the anonymous chat board 8chan served as the grounds for various posters to develop their own version of the story, calling the students who endured such a horrific crime crisis actors that were working to push the liberal agenda. The word quickly passed through multiple platforms across the country and eventually made its way into the front lines of social media, creating a conspiracy that was far from fact. Unfortunately, the students who are subject to this online brutality will struggle to forget the day that they lost their friends and unintentionally became front and center in political turmoil. While fake news has had a lasting impact on society, these examples are far from being the end of damaging information to further an agenda in the political world. With the constantly increasing platforms of accessible media, it is likely that we have seen only the beginning.